Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to another video. So I thought I would create something in my journal this time, and I'm going to use the Clematis stamp. I really feel like using the Clematis stamp, and I love looking through the journal. I just think that it just inspires me to think of other ways to use the products. I just love them, and I love how they've all turned out. I love the pages. So let's grab, you can see there's one there I've done with the Clematis. That is beautiful with the Clematis, just lovely. See, now I feel like using the vase. I'm terrible, I always get sidetracked. Right, let's grab a page. You can see that my journal is really well used, which I love. I love looking at that one. That's one of my favourite pages. Just love looking at that. It's just so nice to look back on the journal, and as you can see, I've done quite a few pages as well, just showing different designs. I've got a blank page there I could use. Do I want to use blues? No, I don't want to use blues. So let's find a page, a completely blank page. And what's great about this journal is I can just open the page and I can open it flat quite easily, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some masking tape. I'm going to mask off, I think. Let me just check that, or whether I'm going to use, because I've got a couple of ideas. What do I want to use? Could use it in a vase, couldn't I? Oh, let's do it in the vase, even though I've not got the vase stencil out. I am terrible for changing my mind. Now, is the vase in there? I don't think it's in that one. It's number 5, I think. There it is. There we go. So I'm going to use the Clematis, and I'm going to use the vase stencil. So let's have a, I don't need me low-tack tape now. What colour? Let's grab, I just want to grab a piece of card just to check my colour. That's more bluey purple. Let's have a look. I'm going to be using my Gansai Tambi watercolours, and I'm using the 48 set that I have in stock, and you can see I've got a new one which I haven't touched yet, and I want to use that. So you can see that you've got your colours here, you've got a colour chart that you can check as well. These pans will come out as well, as you can see. So the little pans come out, and they've got a number. So let's have a look at what we've got. And I can faff. So where's the lilac-y colour? Right, so do they correspond? I would like some, see, I like that cobalt violet. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. What colours are you classed as? Obviously, if you pull one out, it's easy to get the others out. Let me grab a pair of scissors. Number 60. Number 60. So number 60 is cobalt blue. I want number 139. What colour, what number are you? Number 61. So where are my purples then? Are these dark ones? What colour are these? 66. That looks a purpley colour. 64. I'm going to spend all my time doing this now. 64 ultramarine. I'm looking at these and thinking, am I going blind or something? So I want the greens. Where's the purples? Could be here a long time, folks. But I should have looked at these beforehand. And I'm looking and thinking, I cannot see. What colour's this? 139. There you go. 139. So 139 is the cobalt violet. So I'm going to use the cobalt violet. I'm going to take them out of here because I want to use the ones I want to use, and that's me. So I also want to find the lilac. What colour was that? Oh, there you go. I got that, lilac. So we've got a little bit of lilac. So we've got cobalt violet 139, lilac number 13. And then there's number 37. I think we'll just use those two. Let's use those two. And there's a lid to this as well. You've got your lid to your watercolours, and obviously you can create a chart as well if you wish with your numbers as well. There's also a cover that goes over the top as well. Not that it's going to stay that clean for very long. So let's move those out of the way. And I want to use these here like so. Now what I always like to do if I'm using any watercolours is I like to give them a little bit of a spray just to, you know, get them going. Obviously you can use your paint palettes as well. Grab your paint palettes. I have a plastic paint palette somewhere. So let's grab that. So I've got plastic paint palettes that are not clean, which is handy, don't you think? Especially as I'm going to create. As you can see, they're not clean. Let's see if we've got any. That might be a little bit cleaner. So a lesson to myself should be clean your paint palettes. But I've just got these plasticky ones because I used them for workshops because they were easy for workshops. So I want a colour that will sort of dissolve into the background. So let's have a lilac blue. Let's use lilac blue. There we go. So I'm using my Pink Pig journal. I love this journal. And the ink moves beautifully on there. And I'm going to take a larger acrylic block and let's use the lilac blue and stamp our Clematis onto the card. Because I've got a bigger acrylic block, I'm not too worried that I'm actually working over the page. I wouldn't recommend that you work over the page because if you drop your ink pad, you've then got a mark on your page that you don't actually want. So let's have, the only thing you have to think about is your acrylic block. There we go. You just have to think about your acrylic block on the page because of the rings, but that's easily sorted. So let's just, and this takes moisture really nicely, this card in the pages. Beautiful quality, really nice and thick. So let's just give that a little bit of time just to make an impression on there. And in its own right, that is beautiful. But these pages are really thick. Now, I don't know whether I've got a mask for the Clematis, but we're going to faff. Oh, there you go. What are the chances of that flicking out like that? Luck's never on my side usually, but yes, it's a bit bent and etc. But there you go. Look, there's a Clematis. What are the chances of that flicking out like that? So let's just place that. Let's just convince it that it needs to go where I want it to go. So I've got a little mask and it's out of copier paper. And then I'm going to use the lilac bloom once again. So let's take that lilac bloom. And the good thing about this is I'm using a permanent ink. So when I use any water, that's not going to be affected. The ink will stay where I've put it. It's not going to be affected in the slightest. The other thing about these pages is, in the journal, it takes moisture. It's got a little bit of texture, but not much. So it's still quite smooth. So it's really nice to work on. Don't want it that way, don't want it that way. Let's have it there. So we'll add this second floral. And just give that a little bit of time just to make the impression. Now I've used copier paper as a mask because then I won't have any ridges because the card's not too thick. Let's just give that. Anybody think I'd have my nails to coordinate with the project in purples. It's very deep purple, so you can't tell. There we go. That's it. So we've got our 2 Clematis on there, which is lovely. So let's leave that mask there just in case I need that. And then what I'm going to do is just grab a purple-ish pencil. It doesn't matter what pencil I use. Oops, let's not let that drop out. So just a purple-ish colour. And I'm just going to give them a couple of stems just so I can put them into my vase. And then I'm going to take my vase stencil. So let's take the vase stencil. And then we can decide where our vase is going. So now I'll use the purplish pencil just to add that outline. And can you see I can now add my pretend stems. Doesn't matter where your stem comes from. Right, let's move that pencil out of the way. And shall we do a little bit of colouring? There we go. So let's do a little bit of colouring. We can move our ink pads out of the way. So let's move those out of the way, and then we've got a little bit of space. Let's bring in our watercolours that you can see they've still got that moisture on there. And let's grab, have I put that brush back? I always seem to put the brush back that I need. Now, so I'm using my round, Nick Pro round, #1 round brush. And I'm going to use some water. So I've got some water on the side. And I'm going to grab a little bit of kitchen roll as well. So let's take that kitchen roll. But initially, let's move that out of the way. I'm going to add some water. So I'm going to grab a bigger round brush. So I'm using number 8. It's another NYX. Is it another NYX Pro? Don't know. It's just a round brush anyway. So I'm going to add some water. So let's just add some water. And the good thing is that my colour that I've added to the page on the florals is not going to move at all. Now I'm using this bigger round brush just because it holds a little bit more moisture, that's all. It just holds a little bit more moisture. There we go. But the actual colour doesn't move. So let's go back to that smaller round brush and let's use an acrylic block as my palette. So let's bring in our little colours and let's pick up some of this beautiful colour. Now if you're not sure what the colour is, let's take our palette. Look at the richness in there. Absolutely gorgeous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of that colour. Can you see how pigmented this purple is? It's highly pigmented. So you're coming over there. So I'm just adding a little bit. Let's just add a little bit of darkness around there, just so that it's a little bit darker. And then if I bring in some water, I should be able to just touch that and it will move, and it moves beautifully. So I hardly have to touch, and that just moves gloriously. You don't need much water, and that moves absolutely wonderfully. Now what I'm going to do is, let's have this one here. So it's got lots of water in there. You can have your jars of water if you wish, that's entirely up to you. Even with the one colour, as you blend out, you just get a lighter colour. But I'm just adding a little bit of water now. So you're there and you're there. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of this colour now. Let's put that in here, in this one. Again, I just want to test the colour. That's fine. So I can come in, take a little bit of your moisture off so that it doesn't run away with you. What beautiful colours. And can you see I'm doing one floral at a time, because then I can just see where I'm going. So I'm just doing one floral at a time. So we won't touch that at the moment. So let's come in with the water, and I'm now stepping my thing in there. Because I've only got a small amount of space, it's very difficult to make sure I just use that space. So what I'm coming in now is I'm coming in with a little bit more of that darkness with the dark colour. Look how rich that pigment is. I'm going straight neat into, look at that, almost black. It's so dark. I can't get over the pigment in them. Wow. So let me just dilute that. They always recommend that when you use watercolours that, you know, you use a clean brush, but I'm using colours that are very similar. So I'm going to take a little bit of that moisture off there, and then I'm going to just blend that out. So it goes from very dark, really dark, and then when you blend it out, you dilute that colour, and the pigment is superb, absolutely superb. So what I'm going to do now is, have I got another container? Let's grab the things I grab. So let's just grab another container. I can put some water in. There we go. I never have too much water lying around because it just worries me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go up to the floral, just so that it will bleed a little bit. So I'm going to sort of come in, and it's going to, I'm going to slightly touch the floral where that watercolour is. So I'm slightly touching the watercolour just to drag a little bit of that colour out. Just a little bit more water, just to drag that out a little bit. There we go. So it just softens it a little bit. I can even, can you see this tinted water down here? You can even use a little bit of your tinted water just down here, just to, I forgot how much I like the watercolours and the looseness of the colour. So I'm going to come in now back to this lighter shade, which was, oh, let's get our chart. It was number 13 lilac and 139 cobalt violet. So 13, this is the lilac. So with the lilac, I'm going to come in just with some of that neat colour and just blend. Now what happens is my colour that I stamped in becomes less obvious. It's not quite so in your face, the colour I stamped in. I keep moving up to my paint palette. Then what I'm going to do, if I don't think I've got a finer brush. What's this one? No idea, but just any fine brush. Let's see if that's fine enough. Take some of the moisture off there. I don't want too much moisture. And then I'm just going to come in with the fine brush, and I'm just going to just come in and just bring a little bit of detail, just making it a little bit darker around those edges. So I'm picking up the neat pigment. So for instance, we'll just come around here, and I can come in and add a little bit of pencil work if I wanted to, but I would just like to use the watercolour. I cannot get over how pigmented these are. They're just so pigmented, it's just amazing. Really, I should turn my page, shouldn't I? Which would be a whole lot easier. Just lovely, and it changes the whole look of the floral by colouring it with watercolours. So what I'm going to do is I'm then going to just touch with the water. So I've got this little jar of water and I'm just touching with some of that water. It just softens it and it's just lovely. I love that look. It just makes me happy. So what I'm going to do now, I've got this petal here that's coming down. So I'm going to take my fine brush and I'm going to take that really deep sort of purpley colour. Can you imagine how long these are going to last me? And what I'm going to do is, let's come in and we'll just, because this one is meeting this one, I just want to make sure that I don't lose that detail. So let's just, can you see I keep touching the kitchen roll? So I'm just adding some of that darker detail so that I don't lose the edge of the petal. There we go. This side's not so much of a problem because I can see. Let's just add that petal there. There we go. So let me just leave that on one side. So I'm going to come in now with the dark purple colour like we did before with my round brush that's got a little bit more moisture on there. And just add a little bit more of that purple. There we go. Let's take our water. And because I'm using the same sort of similar colours, it's not too much of a problem with the water. If you were using something that is, you know, very different, I would recommend that you have a separate jar of water, just so that you can rinse that out and it doesn't sort of become contaminated. I've hardly got any water on there now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in that fine brush again, just with that dark, and I'm just going to add a little bit of dark there, a little bit, just so that you can, I didn't even put any dark there, just so you can see those edges. As we join them together. Oops. So then I'll take some more water and I'm just going to just blend that out. So just blend that out. There we go. And let's take some of our lighter colour. Let's pick that up. You can just put it on a paint palette if you wish here to work on. But I want to work with the neat colour. I'm using this lighter colour to sort of blend out the previous colour, like I would with my pencils, really. Let's add. Let's rinse that. And then what we'll do is, just to bring out and soften the edges, we're going to touch that colour again, just so that it bleeds out a little bit. Just so the edges of that darker colour bleeds out. And you get that really lovely sort of watercolour look. So can you see how they're coming along? Just lovely, absolutely lovely. So I'm going to come in again and I'm going to use the neat colour. Again, just have that on the edge, just so that I haven't got too much moisture. We're going to just add it a little bit darker, just so you can see the edges. Spot the person that's having too much fun. So I'm bringing in another layer of that colour. And I must admit, I do love how the colour moves nice and easily. So I can bring in that water again. Did you see that I just touched the kitchen roll again? And you can just blend that out beautifully. And so easily it moves absolutely seamlessly. I only have to have a touch of water and it moves no problem at all. So I can dip it in the water, take off the excess, then you lose what position you're in. And it absolutely moves just seamlessly. So again, I'm going to take a little bit extra water now and just make that bleed out again. Just because it gives it that dreamy sort of look. You could spritz with water because your ink underneath that you've stamped the floral with is not going to move. However, I find this a little bit more, I'm in more control. So let's just... And it just gives it that dreamy look. And I love that. I love how I can just make it a little bit dreamy. So now, have we got, what kind of colours have we got? There you go. I want a grey. There it is, 21. I bet you I can't pick it straight away. Let's move those out of the way. Oh, I can pick it straight away. So let's find 21. Just use my scissors, and they're easy to put back because the numbers are underneath. 21. And if I pull them out, it means that I'm not getting my box all wet. And what I would say is, before you start work, I would recommend that you spray these sort of 10 minutes before you start work, really. So what I'm going to do is, she says, I'm going to try and move this around so you can see. And I'm going to add a little bit of water. Now my purple line's not going to move. I'm just adding a little bit of moisture just to my container. And can you see I'm adding quite a bit of moisture to the container? I would recommend having this spritzed a lot longer than I've just done that. And then I'm just going to add my water. Can you see how it's moving now? Because I put loads of water on there, it's automatically moving. Can you see? So we've automatically got that movement. Now I want to add a little bit of purple in there. So I'm going to take this diluted little bit here. And I'm going to take some of the dilution and just add a little bit of that purple into the vase. Let's have a little bit more darkness in there. Oh yes, look at that. And let's bring a little bit more of that darkness in there. Let's rinse the brush. Let's bring a little bit more of that grey. And let's go right up to our line. So it's got a bit more. There we go. So let's turn this round. Now we want it to appear a little bit softer. So let's go up to that grey and make it bleed. So we'll make that grey just bleed a little bit, just so it's a little bit more dreamy. Let's make this bleed out here, because then it's automatically grounded. And I want it a little bit darker underneath. But just look how just simplified it just moves. Now I could dry the colour and add more layers. There we go. So we can add more layers. So I'm going to add a little bit more of that purple. I'm going to take my water, and what I can do, where's your kitchen roll, Tracy? So I can dab the water now, and if I want it a little bit lighter in areas, it's quite easy just to dab a little bit out. So you can dab a little bit out so you've got it a little bit lighter in areas if you wish. Let's use that water again just to make that a little bit lighter. And again, I can add a little bit more of that purple just round here, take up my water, and because the card allows me to move that, it moves beautifully, just moves really nicely. Can you see that? So it's quite dreamy then, it really is dreamy. You can still come in if you wish. So let's grab our really, let's knock that on the floor. We can grab our really fine brush and we can come in with that fine brush, and you can add a little bit more darkness, just picking up a little bit more of that dark pigment. Just here and there, just so that you've got the dark pigment. So you can take your time and you can just keep adding layers just to make that a little bit darker. Let's move that out of the way. I'm then going to take the brush once again and let's touch some of that dark area. Let's make it fan out There you go. So by using the round brush, because it's got a little bit more, it holds a little bit more moisture. That's what's allowing me just to encourage that to fan out, just so it's just a little bit more dreamy. I like this bit here, where it really fans out, and there, that makes me happy. So let's now grab my heat tool, and then I will show you in detail the sort of dreaminess I'm talking about. Let's move those out of the way because we don't want to dry that. I like how I can just pick these up and I can move them wherever I want. So let's just give this a little dry. And what I mean by that sort of dreamy, where it feathers out, can you see? It feathers out in areas and it makes it just a little bit more dreamy. It really does make it more dreamy. And I love how you get that watery effect to it as well. It works really nicely. I just love that. So what I'm going to do now is I want my text stamp. So I'm going to use my Magnolia. So let's use, obviously got the Magnolia stamp out because I'm a drip. Yes, I have. So I'm going to use the text stamp on the Magnolia set. And I'm going to use this Fine Claire Morning Mist, because that will add a nice touch of grey to the background that coordinates with my grey here. And also because it's grey and it's a permanent ink, that water in the background is not going to affect it at all. So I'm just going to add some text to the background, and it just adds to that sort of botanical feel of the background. I'm going to, and if I still want to add more colour, I can do that. And I'm just keeping the ink pad away from the page, just so that I don't drop that ink pad, because I know what I'm like. So let's add a little bit of text through here. So a little bit more. And the grey just works beautifully with that. Just the perfect amount of little touches, just to give that a little bit more life. Just so you can see we've got the text in there as well. Ooh. Now I'm just going to let that rest a little bit, but we can add a little bit more depth now I've dried it, she says, with the grey. So I'm going to pick up the grey and I'm going to come in and I can just make this a little bit darker. And I'll just blend that out. And it's not going to affect my text. And what I'm going to do is sort of blend it out with the watery purple that I've got on here. There we go. Then I'll pick up the water, so I can pick up my water and then just blend it out. Let's make it so that it bleeds. We like it when it bleeds, or Tracy does. I like it when it bleeds. You can also dab, and you can take some touches of your colour out if you wish. It's entirely up to you. So I'm just going to give that a little dry. What colour did I pull out with the pencil? It's not the one I want. So let's just give this a dry. And then to soften it all, I'm just going to, even though I've dried it, I'm just going to spritz it with water and just let that soften a little bit. So then I want a little bit of a darker, I'm sure it's black grape or something like that I want. It usually is. Yeah, black cherry, not black grape. Black cherry. So I've got my black cherry, which is PC 1078. So let's give this a dry now. Just softens everything. And I like it because this card really takes the moisture. I can dry underneath. Nothing's gone through at all. It's just wonderful. Let me show you. Nothing's gone through. Slight mark from where I've had it on the non-stick craft sheet, but nothing's gone through. So that's wonderful. So I'm giving this a proper dry now. You can see it's still wet there. So I'm just giving this a really good dry. Best way to test if it's dry, just check. What the heck is that? Is it a hard bit on there? Can you hear? No idea. But that is dry. So I'm going to come in with the black cherry, PC 1078. I'm just going to make this a little bit darker now. I can still feel moisture in there. Just so that they've definitely got some stems. And then you can come in, if you like, and you can just add a little bit more detail with your pencil. Now I'm not adding much, I'm just adding a little bit right into the centre. I'm just adding a little bit so it's really, really dark. That's all I'm doing. I'm not doing anything other than just adding a little bit more darkness in there, just so it's a little bit darker. Not that, I mean, the watercolour is so dark, you don't actually need the pencil work, but you can add the pencil on the top should you wish. It's entirely up to you. So it's up to you whether you want to add any pencil work, but you really don't need to add any. There's beautiful detail on there. So I'm then going to grab my bleed proof white. Let's pick up, not that the water's very clean, but there you go. You really do need to use clean water, Tracy. So I'm using the bleed proof white. Just hoping my husband does answer the door because I know what he's like. So I'm going to, oh, he's there. Just add little touches of the white, and I'm sort of skimming it across the surface, just skimming that across there. So a sort of a light sweeping motion, just to give, there we go, just a light sweeping motion. Let's just take a little bit more. Let's add a little bit of white to here. Now I'm not obliterating it with white. I'm just adding a few little touches just to the Clematis, just to, it just lifts it a little bit more. So I hardly touch the page and I just give it a little skim over with the white. Let's just add a bit more moisture. So this bleed proof, the idea is that it doesn't pick up the colour underneath, because if it reacts with the moisture, it would pick up all that purple, and we don't really want to do that. So I can pick up this now, a little bit of white, just to add a bit of white. And let's come down the stem a little bit, just a tiny little bit. Just rinse that again and pick up a little bit more of that pigment. And Tracy is definitely losing herself too much here. Just adding a little bit of the white. Let's bring a little bit more in here. You could say stop faffing, Tracy, but let's rinse that. It's far better having like a jar or something with your water in, because it's a lot easier to clean your brushes than what I normally do. And it really does add something by adding the white as well. It really does add something. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spritz with water, and there's only one reason I'm spritzing with water, is so I can add my Posca pen, and because it's got water on it, the Posca pen diffuses. And it adds to the page in a different way. Because that moisture is on there, it wicks out. So the white becomes a lot softer, because it reacts with that water, because it's paint at the end of the day, and it just wicks out. So let's just... So it's done exactly what I want it to do. So let's give that a dry now. And it's great because this is in my journal. And when I close the book, it doesn't matter about the page, that will automatically flatten out. So let's just... Let's dry it from the other side as well, because there's quite a bit of moisture in this. No moisture has gone through, just fantastic. Fantastic journal. When I close that book, it won't be a problem. Can you see how much it's bending? Because I've got lots of moisture on there. Drop that on the floor, and the white sort of diffuses in the background, and it's just a lot softer. It really is softer and more dreamy. Personally, I just think it's beautifully soft and dreamy. So what I'm going to do now is I need to make sure that's completely dry. I can feel the moisture in there. So let's just make sure that's completely dry. There we go. I think it's dryish. Or if I drop that on the floor one more time. The minute you close your book, so when we close our book like so, you've got the weight of that on there and your page will flatten back out again. So don't worry about your page being all bent, etc. It really doesn't matter. So I'm going to now grab a little bird. So let's put the clematis back. And I don't think I ever put it back on the stamp properly. Oh, there we go. That's it. Let's move you just over there. Move these, because then we don't get in such a mess with moisture everywhere. There we go. We'll need a little acrylic block, so let's use the little acrylic block. I'm then going to grab TE44, just so I can have my little bird, which usually drops off because it's so well used. And then, so let's take out, which one are you now? It's the one that always falls off. So let's just give the little bird a wipe at the back. There we go. Just so it doesn't fall off when I add black ink, because I really don't want to do that. So let's add some of that Nocturne ink. I'll just turn that over, make sure it's not going to fall off, because that's just my luck. We'll add our little bird, and I don't have to worry because it's flat onto that non-stick craft sheet, so that's fine. Let's give that a little bit of time because we've got that moisture and everything in that card, and it's got a little bit of texture. That's perfect. Okay, let's place that back. And then I'm going to grab my berries stamp, which I couldn't use before because it was out of stock, but it's now back in stock. Yay! It's just I don't know where I've put it. Oh, dear me. Where have you put your berries? There it is. So I can now use TE55, which I couldn't use before. And I'm going to use this sort of loose berry here. Let's take that loose berry. Let's put this over the clematis. There we go. And then I'm going to use the lilac bloom. So let's use that lilac bloom. I'm going to knock that water over eventually. You do know that, don't you? So let's have Remember that you've got to think about those ring bindings. Can't get my words out. So I'm going to add a few berries there. Wonderful. Just adds to it. Oh, I love it. Love it. Love it. I love how the older stamps can combine beautifully with the new stamps. So let's have this coming down here, just to give the arrangements some more looseness by having the berries. And this is the perfect colour, this lilac bloom. I don't even have to colour, just wonderful. Now don't move that, Tracy. So let's bring this in here. I think I have lost some of the mask actually. I think a little one of the corners has disappeared, but there you go. So let's have some berries there, and let's dangle some. The problem is I find it very addictive when I'm creating, and I am happy in my own little space, just enjoying my creative time. I want 5 lots of berries, not an even amount. So let's lift that there. Take those berries again, and let's add there. This colour couldn't be any more perfect. Okay, so let's lift this out. We definitely keep that mask because we don't want to lose that, do we? We could also add some berries to our base of the vase. So let's add that to the base of the vase. There we go. And I haven't had to mask it because I've sort of winged it, whatever the word is, because I can add there we go. Let's just take the berries again, and I can just add there we go. I sort of wipe the purples and the deepy colours. I don't know why, because some colours can stain a little bit. Right, let's put that back. I'm obsessed with this berry stamp, and it seems all of you like it as well. So let's place that back in there. Now what we can do to finish off is we can make the base of the vase stand out a little bit more, and I don't have to worry about the berries because that will stay put. I'm still using the dirty water, but there you go. So I can now, let's emphasize the edge of our vase. Let's come down, especially now we've added the berries. You don't want that vase to become lost. Let's get a little bit more water. Just make it a little bit darker. Honestly, spot the person that faffs. There we go. So you don't have to add anything to the berries if you don't wish. But what you can do, just to give a little bit more definition, is you can just go a little bit round the edge with the black cherry 1078. You can just add a sort of a little touch of darkness, and it's like it's got a little shadow just underneath the berries. Just to add. You can even add sort of little, you know, you've got little berry there, so let's just I'm just adding a little bit of shading just under the berries a little bit, but it just adds a little bit more looseness. And if you can't see a petal, if you think a petal's got a little bit lost, just use your pencil and just emphasize that petal a little bit more. There we go. But the berries just nicely finish that off by just adding a little dot of that darker colour. It really helps. Now let's lift this up so you can see, just so you can see our beautiful page. The berries for me really give that a little bit more looseness to the design. And I'm then going to just add some last Posca pen and the word Clematis. So let's just there we go. Then we need to open this out because we're adding that word. So let's open that out. And then we can take the word Clematis. Let's grab that Clematis. Grab a little acrylic block. And I'm going to use my black ink, which I've put to one side, just so that I don't touch the page. We'll just add the word Clematis here. And again, I'm just giving that a few seconds just to make that impression on the page, but it doesn't need much at all. And we'll grab our grey Inktense pencil, Chinese ink, and then we'll just give that a little bit of a blend. And you hardly have to touch it with this card on this. There we go. Let's close the book. And that is your page finished. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I love whether it's feathered out there. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you'll give that a little go. It's just lovely and easy to do and very therapeutic. So love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.